Hey! So you're having a chilled out day playing some Town of Salem and you just rolled serial killer, plague bearer, godfather or some other evil role. Well shit, time to spend the whole game writing a triggering death note or just leave night one because fuck it, why not? Or you can watch this video and learn 10 tips, because you know, people love tips, from the awesome people at Reddit and from somebody who spent more time playing this game this year than talking to my own mother to learn how not to suck as evil. Probably. So I don't usually start off videos with a disclaimer, but I feel like I have to for this one because there's two things I want to say before we start. The first one is that I'm assuming that you have a basic knowledge of Town of Salem already, and that you know which roles are which, you know the investigator results for each role as well. And if you don't, I would direct you to the wiki, which is a really valuable resource, and I'll leave it down in the description. Read up on it all, and keep it open if you're not sure of what you're doing. The second part is that I don't mean any offence with this video. If you disagree, good. You know, leave it in the comments, leave your own tips on how to be the best possible evil you can be in the comments, and let other people read it too, because that will be absolutely amazing. With that said, let's get started. Tip 1. Claim what fits. And what I mean by this basically is do not feel limited by the investigator results for your role. This is something that a lot of newer players do, and it's something that's easy to fall into when claiming. So what I mean by it basically is, as mafioso, claiming vigilante or veteran, or if you're a serial killer, claiming doctor. These sorts of claims are immediately going to ring alarm bells in the heads of townies all across the land, so don't feel like you have to. And the main reason behind this is that actually the chances of there being an investigator in the game in the first place are not that high. I mean, there's 4 town investigative roles in classic mode, there's 6 town investigative roles in Coven, there's 2 TI slots and a couple of random town depending on which game mode you're playing. So already there may or may not be an investigator in game, and even then if there is, there's 15 players in a game, the chances of them investigating you in the first couple of nights are not that high. So don't feel like you have to pay attention to what those results are when you claim. Instead, look at the role list, in particular look at which roles have died, which townies have confirmed, and then work out what you're going to claim accordingly. So take night 1 and you've got a dead town support and 2 dead town investigatives. This would be an amazing night for Mafia, by the way. But if you've got 2 TIs dead, 1 town support dead, you want to claim either the other town support slot or you want to claim town killing. A town investigative claim at that point is going to be a bit risky because you're claiming random town from the off, and that's not necessarily something that you want to do. Tip 2. Don't claim the same alignments as your evil buddies. And this tip is particularly applicable if you're a member of the Mafia or if you're a member of the Coven and you can see who else is in your team and what roles they have. Certain evil roles lend themselves quite easily to other fake claims. So for example, a consort lends himself quite easily to a fake escort claim if there's no spy in game. And equally, a hypnotist can lend himself very easily to a transporter fake claim. These are both alignments in the town support section, and if you think one of your Mafia buddies is going to be claiming a role in that area, you're going to want to claim something of a different alignment. For example, the mafioso might want to claim investigator or sheriff to try and even out the claims between yourselves. And now that the spy has been changed so that they cannot read the Mafia chat at night, it's a really good opportunity on the first night to work out between yourselves what your fake claims are going to be for day 2, just in case any one of you gets voted up on the stand. Lookout can be a really useful claim to try and cover for your fellow buddies and confirm them in the mid-game as well, so do bear that in mind, and we'll talk a little bit about good or bad claims in tip 3. Tip 3. Not all claims are born equal. There are good claims and bad claims that you can have as town, and I figure if you guys like a tips video, you're probably the kind of people that like a pyramid chart too, right? So let's get that up. And what we've got is 3 layers of claims, from the scummiest claims that you can come up with, to those that are decent, solid, good claims to claim as an evil role, to those that are just straight up ballsy as fuck, and you only want to use in really a YOLO situation, or if you've got the support around you to back it up, or if you are really, really confident in your ability to pull it off. So let's start with the scummiest claims of them all. The first one, and the most scummy claim you could possibly make, is anything that isn't town. Claiming survivor, claiming amnesiac, claiming guardian angel, claiming neutral evil. These are all scummy claims. There's a chance you could live if you fake executioner, but there's a very good chance that a sensible jailer is going to execute you that night as well. So use those claims with extreme caution. I can't stress that enough. Then you get onto the town roles themselves, and those which are considered, in quotation marks, scummy claims, and are likely to get you put up on the stand. And I would say these are sheriff, spy, now that the changes have happened, medium, and a bit of a controversial one, but vigilante, to a certain extent, is a scummy claim, especially if there is a CC. So if you're going to claim these ones, that's fine, you can claim them. What I would say is try and claim them earlier on in the game to get yourself more confirmed than the person that is inevitably going to CC you for that slot in the role list. Then you move on to those claims which are decent, and these claims are not decent because they're harder to fake, although some of them admittedly are. They're more decent because they're actually valuable roles to town as a whole. These are roles that town is going to think twice before putting up on the stand or executing in the middle of the night, because they do bring real value to town in the game. And these are Doctor and Bodyguard. Super easy to fake claim, but the only reason they're there is because people really want to keep the town protective alive throughout the game. Escort, because as a town support slot, it's quite a provable role, and if people are confirming your role blocks, even if those people are other members of your Mafia or Coven, that could only be a good thing for you and makes you look more credible than those roles that can't prove that they exist. Investigator is a very useful role, and if you're good at scum reading, if you're good at working out who's who, or even if you just want to use a mixture of people who've claimed during the day and people who have died at night and use that to build up a fake investigator will, it's usually a very solid claim if you're going to go for town investigative. The most solid town investigative claim of all, though, has to be lookout. If you can pull off a lookout claim, people will want to keep you around, particularly if you can confirm 1 or 2 people in the process. And then finally, veteran is probably the last of the decent claims. If you were mafioso and you were really going to stick to your investigative results, I would always recommend going for veteran over vigilante, just because it's quite a ballsy claim. People expect vigilante as a scum claim, they don't always expect veteran, and veterans tend to be trusted a little bit more because of the value they bring to town in the end game. Finally, we move on to the top tier of claims. Now these are just ballsy. I'm not calling them good or bad. These can be absolutely incredible claims if you can pull them off, but equally, they are the hardest to pull off, the hardest to prove, and the most likely to fall apart around you within a day or two. So if you're going to claim these, claim them late, claim them in jail, claim them when you have no other option, or else claim them from the start but get everybody to work around you to help you. And these claims are Transporter, Mayor, Retributionist, Jailer, for the love of God, and Vampire Hunter in a game where there is no vampires. I'll go through each of these in turn. So Transporter, the only role that can credibly claim this is going to be Hypnotist in the game right now. But saying that, if you've got 1 or 2 people throughout the course of the game saying they were transported, you can pull it off as just about any role. It's also not a bad claim for a mafioso to consider in a last-ditch attempt, because the mafioso can claim that they killed somebody, but actually they were just transporting them with someone else, so that's why they were seen visiting. Again, this is very ballsy, it's not something you want to use in every game, and I am absolutely not guaranteeing that this is going to work for you. The next one is Mayor. I would probably only recommend claiming this in jail if you have to, because a jailer is not going to execute a mayor. The same goes for Retributionist. You can't prove that you're a Retributionist. If you're lucky, there might be a real one in the game, but even then there's going to be a CC. So this is again something you would claim late, something you would claim in jail, something you would claim to just get you out of a really desperate situation. Then we move on to the jailer claim itself. Now, I'm struggling to think of a time when it is ever going to be alright to claim jailer. About the only times you're going to be able to pull this off is if the jailer is cleaned or stoned, because otherwise you can bet the jailer is bringing you in jail that night to execute. And finally, Vampire Hunter. I have seen this work. I've particularly seen it work with witches claiming it, although I'm not talking about neutral evil roles for this guide. Vampire Hunter can buy you a day or two. It can scare the town if there isn't any role and make people think there's vampires. However, with the change in role list, there's now less and less any slots in game. So actually, if there's no any slot, obviously don't claim Vampire Hunter, because vampires are not possible. Tip 4. Counterclaim when you need to. This is going to be a really quick tip, and if you've heard me say CC a few times, I've had a few comments as well. What is CC? To CC someone is basically to counterclaim them, and to claim that you are of the same alignment or the same role as they are claiming in the game. Now, as an evil, quite often, the thing that gives you away from the townies is the fact that you're not claiming your role when they're put up on the stand to claim. And it will ultimately confirm the other guy who got voted up, because there will be nobody counter-claiming his role, so there's every chance he's going to get innoed down too. So it's a really quick tip just to say, don't be afraid to counter-claim. Wouldn't recommend it necessarily too early, but then again, if you've already been forced to claim, you're just going to have to go with it. Tip 5. Get in character. And this was a really awesome tip that came off of Reddit, so thank you to Basic Nerd, who was the guy that suggested it. He says, in general, as evil, you should be acting like whatever role you're claiming. Participate in discussion and voting, and in your fake wills, say you did what that role would do. If you're claiming bodyguard and mayor revealed, you better have a good reason for not protecting him if he dies. You should basically pretend that you are whatever role you're claiming, and only change what you would do otherwise if it somehow benefits the Mafia or Coven. And I could not agree with you more there. I think that's a brilliant tip, so thank you. Tip 6. Wait to out evils. And this one is so important. I feel passionate about this one. Say you're a member of the Mafia and you hit somebody who's immune night 1. Same goes for if you're Coven and you find someone who is immune and you think, ha, I've found the neutral evil, or I've found the neutral killing. Pretty much one of the worst things that you can do for yourselves is to out them in your death vote the next night. Why? Because it's very early in the game. Town doesn't have the leads yet to know who to hang. They're still in the discussion phase and the sharing of information phase and the forcing each other to claim. And here you are, giving them all the information they need to remove one of the evil roles from the game super early and leave less people to outnumber the townies towards the middle of the game. That's not to say you should never out them. Say that one of your member of the Mafia is looking awfully suspicious and you feel like they might be about to be questioned the following day. That's a great time to out the neutral killing, because then all of a sudden the focus of the town is going to shift onto them and it's going to take pressure off you for that extra day, which could be all you need. Tip 7. Know when to give up. And this sounds completely counterintuitive, right? You're evils, you should never give up. You should always keep fighting to the end. Not always. Sometimes it is actually better to lose a member of your team in order to A, confirm yourself, or B, look as towny as possible when you're close to the end of the game. And what I mean by this is occasionally you'll end up in situations where, for example, a confirmed resurrected sheriff finds your mafioso. If that happens, that mafioso is going up one way or another. What you can do about it in this situation is A, you can defend them hard, or B, you can push them up harder than anybody and act like the biggest townie of all time. Now, there's a right time for both of these strategies, and it depends on the exact game and the exact circumstances of what's going on, so I cannot tell you which is the right option to do. I wish I could, but occasionally you're gonna have to push them up. And when those situations happen, rather than waiting until the last minute to vote, rather than saying nothing, rather than innocenting them and being the only person to innocent in the whole thing, guilty them, push them up, accuse them loudly of being evil. Hopefully they're going to understand what you're doing, because what you're doing is self-preservation and trying to keep yourself and the remaining members of your team alive for as long as possible. Tip 8. Learn to count numbers and mislynch at the right time. And I've got to give a special shout out, and I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, so I'm sorry, but to Lodger Zarino. Now, there's 2 very valuable things that you're going to need to do as evils towards the end game. The first is learn to count the numbers. How many townies are left? How many evils are left? And you can count neutral evils amongst your team too. Eventually, you'll reach a point where perhaps it's 3 and 3, or it's 3 and 4 left. Now, what he says is that, for example, town has 5 members, evils have 4, the random mafia or the godfather should push for a mislynch because it will make the game 4v4, and even if the town has a jailer or a vig, you're still going to win as evils because you have unlimited kills and town doesn't. All you need to do is persuade one townie to believe you on that final day to hang the wrong person, and then you're suddenly in a winning situation. And I think that's a really important tip to remember. I've found myself in games like that before. Don't forget to count the numbers and work out what you need to do to get majority and act at the right time. Tip 9. Be active. But not too much. This is the hardest tip to try and explain. It's how to basically talk during the day without looking suspicious, because there is nothing more suspicious than a silent townie. It just doesn't happen that often, and when it does, they're normally the first ones to get voted up on the stand. I mean, calling someone out for being quiet alone is often enough, so you do want to be talking, but you don't want to be the guy asking for any leads on day 2. You don't want to be the guy shouting "Exy" every time somebody gets accused. What you want to do is contribute useful information, but more importantly than that, you want to try and make friends and influence people. Whisper to people, ask for their roles, find out what they're doing, tell them your claims if you have to. Quite often it's much safer to whisper a claim to somebody to get their own claim than it is to say it out loud during the day chat. It's a fine balance. What I will say is obviously certain things are scummy. We already talked about calling people out as exy as soon as being accused. That's a red flag for pretty much any player. If they see that, they're going to want to get you up there and lynch you. But the good things you can say are, for example, point out that 2 town investigators have died. Is anybody a random town? That's useful. Remind people not to leave the game. That soft claims that you're a medium or a retributionist, and it means you're likely not to get jailed that night. So there's things you can and can't say. Obviously, this is a short tips video, so I'm not going to go into more detail than that. I will just say, find the balance. And finally, tip 10, fake logic can work. And shout out to Chancellor for this one on the Reddit. He said, you can use fake logic to try and confuse the jailer. If you're lynching somebody you know as town, you can say beforehand stuff like, if this is town, execute another townie. And the other math should join in and say the same thing. Or say that Bob claimed lookout but random town and any are taken. Even if they're not, you can try and pretend like they are. You can also do things like claim you claimed random town much earlier than you actually did. Say that you said that somebody was evil earlier on the game when you didn't. People don't always have the time to check things, and when they're making split-second decisions, you can pull up fake evidence and fake logic to keep yourself alive. And that's it, 10 tips on how not to suck as evil. Obviously that doesn't mean you're going to win every game, but if you use these tips, you should be doing better than most players when they get an evil role. So I really hope you enjoyed this. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button. If you really enjoyed it, it would be amazing if you could share it around and show other people too. And I will see you guys next time.